Hello, it's Simon Zutshi here, and in this video, I want to explain the difference between a homeowner mindset and a property investor mindset. And there are some big differences, and if you want to become a successful investor, you really have to get your head around this. So how do I know all of this? Well, look, I've been investing in property since 1995. I was able to leave my corporate job at Cadbury's in 2001 thanks to the income from my property, and by 2003, I'd completely replaced my income. And that is when I set up the Property Investors Network, which was the very first networking in the entire UK for property investors. It's now the longest running and largest network with 50 meetings all around the UK every month. I'm also the author of Property Magic, the Amazon #1 property bestseller. And I've been helping people like you to become successful investors for almost 2 decades. And something I've noticed is that most people think like a home owner. And what I mean by that is they bought into this concept of getting a job, going to college, university, getting a good degree, then getting a job and staying there for life, which isn't a reality these days pretty much in most employers. And then they buy a house, and what they try and do is they pay down that mortgage as quickly as they possibly can. So by the time they retire, they've paid off the mortgage. Now, if you're only ever gonna have one property, that is a good thing to do. If you can pay down your own home mortgage as quickly as you possibly can, it means you're gonna have more money in later life. And in fact, when I bought my first property and I was thinking about buying a second property back in 1997, I actually got a financial advisor to sit down with me, and it was great. He helped me with my life insurance, put a pension in place, and we talked about some money I had in my bank and what I was gonna do with it, invest it. And I explained that I was gonna buy another property. And he assumed that I was gonna sell the property I was living in at the moment, take the equity, add it to the money I had in the bank, buy the new one, and then have a very small mortgage. He said that was such a great thing to do. And I said, no, I don't wanna do that. I'm gonna keep the first property. I wanna use this deposit to buy the next one, and I'm gonna rent the first property out to students at Birmingham University, because it was in Selly Oak, just next to where Birmingham University is situated. And he looked at me and said, hang on a minute. So you want to buy a new house close to the Cadbury's, a bigger house? I said, yes, that's right. But you're not going to sell this first one? You're going to rent it to students? I said, yeah, that's right. And he looked at me down over his nose, over his glasses, and said, that sounds awfully risky to me. Now, this was a financial advisor, and bear in mind, at the time, I was probably, 26, 27, and I was told this very successful financial advisor was telling me what I was planning to do was a very risky thing. Just goes to show you need to be very careful who you listen to. And so I thought about it for a while. I had a couple of sleepless nights, if I'm honest, but I remembered meeting my student landlord who had over 100 properties in Selly Oak, and he'd sat down one afternoon, we had a cup of tea, explained the basic principle. And I probably didn't really get it, if I'm honest, but I thought I want to be a landlord at some point in the future. And so I thought about that. I thought, no, I'm going to keep this one house, I'm going to rent it out, and hey, if it doesn't work, I can always sell it. And to be honest, I was worried about, well, what if I can't find tenants? What if they don't pay me the rent? What if they damage the property? I had all these concerns in my head. And when I found that I actually did it, all the things I was worried about were not really problems. I found tenants very easily. They paid the rent every single month. And when the rent went in, and I saw that the amount they pay was more than the mortgage and the insurance and all the costs, and I was left with some profit each month, I thought, this is amazing, I've got to do more of this. And I did, and that's how I was able to leave my work in 2001. But I had to change my thinking, because most people think I've got to pay my house off. Now, I meet people sometimes who say, look, I'd love to invest in property, Simon, but I don't have any money. They're looking at the savings that they don't have in their bank, and they think they can't invest. But meanwhile, they might have a house, an asset, that they've actually been working hard to pay off, because that's what they've been told they should do. That's the homeowner mindset. And they don't even realize they can access that. You see, sometimes people think, and this might sound really obvious to you, but some people it's going to be a real light bulb moment, so I make no apologies for these obvious statements, but some people don't realize that you can have more than one mortgage. You can only really have one residential mortgage, but when it comes to buy-to-let mortgages, you can have pretty much as many as you want. Some people think that you have to have paid off all your investment mortgages by a certain age, because they have to pay off their own home by a certain age. Well, that's not correct. You're not the one living there paying it. You know, if you're 70, you can apply for a 20-year mortgage on an investment property, and as long as it's a good property, you'll get that mortgage. People think it has to be repayment mortgages, and if you've got a repayment mortgage, it means each month you're paying interest and part of the capital back. So at the end of the 20-year mortgage term, you've paid the mortgage back in full. But no, we don't do that. As property investors, certainly here in the UK, we get interest-only mortgages. So we're only paying interest each month. That means at the end of 20 years, we've borrowed £150,000 to buy a house. We still owe that £150,000. But obviously the value of that has gone down thanks to inflation. And the property is worth a lot more than the debt. So we could sell the house and clear the mortgage and have all that profit, or we could just refinance that property. You see, as investors, we don't want interest only, so we don't want repayment mortgages, because if we had a repayment, we'd be paying interest and capital, it means we'd be paying more money each month. And actually, most investors want to get cash flow. So for great cash flow, get interest only mortgages. Now in some countries, like America, most people have repayment mortgages. So how can you do this? Well, actually in America, you can get 30-year mortgages at very, very low interest rates. So what that means is over 30 years, a repayment mortgage is so small that it's similar to an interest-only mortgage. So have a nice long repayment mortgage, it'll make the payments a lot less, and it means you're going to benefit from the cash flow over that time you own the property, and you've got longer for the value to go up over time as well. So it really comes down to educating yourself, understanding that homeowners who might want to have just one property and pay off the mortgage as quickly as possible, they think very different from us as property investors, who actually, if you have a property, whether it's your own home that you've tried to pay the mortgage down, or maybe it's an inherited property that's got no mortgage, or maybe you even have some investment properties. I mean, a lot of people who've been investing for a number of years, they've had some really good growth on their property, and they haven't thought about refinancing those existing properties, because they think, well, when I refinance, I'm going to increase the borrowing. That means I'm going to increase my monthly payments, and so my cash flow is going to go down, and I want the cash flow from those properties. And what they're failing to recognize is by remortgaging and increasing the debt, they got a big lump of cash they can use to go and put down as deposits on some more properties, and those properties, as long as they know what they're doing, will all make cash flow profit. So although the cash flow on your existing properties might go down if you remortgage and increase the debt on those, that's more than compensated for the new properties you can buy and the extra cash flow you're going to get. And ultimately, you also end up with more properties. And if the values of properties are going up over time, they don't always go up, they come down. It's a cyclical market, but the long-term trend is up. The more you have, let me ask you a question. Would you like to have one property that might double in 10, 15 years? Or would you like to have 5 or 6 properties that are all going to double in 10, 15 years? I think the answer is brilliant. In fact, put the answer down below the video. Would you rather have 1 property or 6? Which would you prefer? Well, of course, you're going to want to have the 6 properties, because you're getting cash flow from all those properties and you're getting the potential equity growth. And here's the key. Your own home, at some point, you're going to have to pay that back. But what we as investors do, we take equity out of existing assets, your own home, inherited property, other rentals. We then use that to buy a number of investment properties that are going to give us cash flow. And over time, as the value go up, we can remortgage, refinance those investment properties, take out the money to pay off our own home mortgage. So what this means is you end up with your own home completely paid off by the time you retire, which is what you need to do, but you still have a portfolio of properties giving you monthly cash flow and going up in value over time. So it's really important that you think as a property investor and not a homeowner, because if you think as a homeowner, but you're trying to pay the mortgage down, repayment mortgage, that will limit the growth of your property portfolio. At the end of the day, you want your portfolio to be as big as possible, giving you as much cash flow. Now, you might think, oh, but if I've got this big portfolio, I've got to spend all this time managing properties. Let me make another distinction for you. There's a big difference between a landlord whose job is to manage those properties. They find the tenants, they move them in, they sort the contracts, they sort out the maintenance, they kick out bad tenants, they chase rent arrears, etc. That's a full-time landlord. I don't want to do that. I don't want to spend my time managing my tenants, looking after my properties. It needs to be done, but it doesn't need to be done by me, it doesn't need to be done by you. You see, I consider myself a property investor. I invest my money to get a great return, and property happens to be the vehicle I use and happens to be the vehicle that most rich and successful people use as well, because it is the best investment asset. But we invest in property to get this long-term growth and get the cash flow. But I pay other people to manage my property for me. I pay letting agents to look after them. You see, I value my time so much. I want to do this, I want to train, I want to teach others. That's what gets me excited. That's what makes me bounce out of bed in the morning. If I had to manage my property myself, I wouldn't be so excited. So really, it's about thinking in the right way, recognizing that we want this portfolio that's creating an income for us, but we don't have to be doing the work. Otherwise, we've just got another job. And personally, I think that particular job of managing your property well, it's not a great job. So build your portfolio in a way that gives you the cash flow, but also gives you the time freedom to really do what you want to do with your life. So I do hope this has helped explain the difference between thinking from a homeowner and a property investor. It's a different mindset, it's a different way of thinking. If you enjoyed this video, please like the video. Please press the bell icon to subscribe. Please ask any questions you've got about this below. Come and comment, I'll come back and answer as many as I possibly can. And I encourage you just to educate yourself. We've got so much free information on this particular YouTube channel. Come and check out the Property Magic podcast, which I release every Tuesday. Some of the strategies for my book, Property Magic, and my Property Mastermind program. You're gonna absolutely love it if you haven't checked it out. And I encourage you also to come and connect. Come to your local property investor network meeting. Come and meet people who are just like you, who want to become more successful investors. Connect with like-minded people who are going to encourage you and champion you rather than tell you what you can't do. And be inspired by other people in your area who are doing exactly what you want. Now, we have 50 meetings around the country. We also have a global virtual PIN meeting for people who are outside of the UK but who want to invest in the UK. You can find out about all of these at pinmeeting.co.uk. It's just £20 to come along to a normal PIN meeting, but if you've not been before, you can attend for your very first time as my guest. So in the description below, there's a link to the PIN meetings. There's also a voucher code you can use. You click on the link, you pick the meeting you want to attend, go to the payment page, click on pay with a voucher code, use the code, it will bypass the payment page and you can come to your very first meeting with my compliments, just to check it out for yourself and you can make an informed decision. Is this the right kind of environment to help me? I do encourage you to take action, start thinking differently, not like a homeowner, but like a successful property investor. I've also lined up another video for you to watch. I hope you enjoy that. Invest with knowledge, invest with skill. I'll see you in the next video. I do hope you got massive value watching this YouTube video. And if you have, I want to make a recommendation to you. I'd like to recommend you come and check out one of our Property Investor Network meetings. Now we have 50 meetings all over the UK, currently all virtual. What that means is you can visit any one of the meetings from the comfort of your own home. You can connect with other like-minded investors, get local people in that area who can help you your property journey, as well as learning from our guest speakers. Now the investment to come to a PIN meeting is just £20, a very, very small investment. But if you've never been before, you can click on the link below and use the voucher code YouTube and come to your first PIN meeting completely free as my guest to come and check it out for yourself. Now I'm pretty sure once you've been and seen the incredible value you get, you're going to want to go again and again. That's entirely up to you, but take action right now. Click on the link below, find your local meeting, scroll down at where the payment page is, use the code YouTube, and you can actually come to your first meeting completely free as my guest. In the meantime, I've also lined up another video I think you're going to watch as well. So until I see you next, invest with knowledge, invest with skill.